Behold the hero. And I'm going to do an audio check after we get started.
To a country. We don't take an oath to a tribe. We don't take an oath to a religion. We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator. We don't take an oath to an individual. We take an oath to the Constitution, and we take an oath to the idea that is America, and we're willing to die to protect it. Every soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, Guardian, and Coast Guardsman, each of us commits our very life to protect and defend that document, regardless of personal price, to a country.
He sounds like an absolute gangster of the lowest intellectual order, like out of a movie. If they were going to make someone sound like this. Chat, let me know if my volume is off. I'm trying to fix it. I don't know if there's a problem tonight. We'll see. Can you imagine he's indirectly, but obviously talking about President Trump. In theory, what he's saying is fine. To the extent that the oath that he took, he actually respected. This is General Milley. Let's just hear this one more time.
We don't take an oath to a tribe.
A tribe?
We don't take an oath to a religion.
That sounds like two anti-Semitic references right there. If I'm not mistaken, Milley, I don't want to read too much. I'm joking.
We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator.
A tyrant or a dictator or a wannabe dictator. This guy, he's taken high school creative writing. It's very powerful.
And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator. We don't take an oath to an individual.
Okay, I don't care to hear the rest of this. You know who tweeted this segment out? Liz Cheney. This is a patriot. Thank you to General Milley for his service to our nation. Now, ordinarily, I am reflexively inclined to thank anyone who has served, even if I disagree with them ideologically. In a material way, they are braver than most, and they have sacrificed more than most, myself included. This is General Milley, and the question here is, how good is everyone's collective memory? Does everybody remember who General Milley is? Above and beyond being one who allowed gender ideology to infiltrate the military, the one who talked about white rage, and he wants to understand why white people have rage. Does everybody remember a very interesting part of General Milley? And I don't think everybody does. Where the heck is the article? Oh, that's right. I lost the link. Hold on one second. General Milley, I'm just going to go Milley heads up China. Does everyone remember this? Ah, yes. Here, this was just a mild, nothing of a scandal. He's a hero. He's a patriot. He doesn't serve a dictator or a wannabe dictator. Yet he said that he would give China a heads up. Admitted. Let me see if gosh, these websites with their overlay ads are borderline useless. This is from the New York Post from September 29th, 2021. Milley admits he would tell Chinese general if U.S. launched attack. It's like they speak in these beautiful platitudes, like heroes, like people with principles who respect the Constitution, as though we've forgotten all about this. How long is this video here?
No intent to attack. And it was my task to make sure I communicated that. And the purpose was to de-escalate, calm things. I am certain, guaranteed certain, that President Trump had no intent to attack.
But,
and it was my task to make sure I communicated that. And the purpose was to de-escalate, calm things.
You shared
down.
all that earlier.
And,
I understand.
And as part of that,
just say, did you or did you not tell him that if we were going to attack, you would let him know?
as part of that conversation,
He refuses to answer it.
General Lee, there's not going to be a war. There's not going to be attack.
But if there is,
powers. And if there was, the tensions would build up. There'd be calls going back and forth from all kinds of senior officials. I said, hell, General Lee, I'll probably give you a call, but we're not going to attack you. Trust me, we're not going to attack you.
Hell, I'll probably give you a call. I will undermine the President of the United States. The Constitution to which I pledged an oath. Oh, hell, I'll call you. If things look like they're going to really hit the fan, I will call you undermining the President of the United States. I'm fairly certain there are several laws that prohibit such conduct, but it was only an admission.
These are two great powers And I am doing my best to transmit the president's intent, President Trump's intent, to ensure that the American people are protected from an incident that could escalate.
I understand your intent, but I think you articulating that you would tell him, you would give him a call, I think is worthy of your resignation. I just think that's against our country, that you would give our #1 adversary
a heads up.
That information.
Undermining the president. Mind blowing. We don't need to watch the rest of that. By the way, how many people in the chat knew of that or remembered that? Liz Cheney, a woman who considers herself to be the utmost of patriots, daughter of a war criminal, praising a man who says, I would undermine the commander-in-chief and give a heads up to our biggest nuclear ideological adversary in the event that the shit was going to hit the fan. Mamacita, buenas noches, no es bueno. Good evening, everybody. Let me go to Rumble, make sure everything's good on Rumble. There's that persisting glitch, which looks like it's been fixed. I've opened up Rumble in 2 separate windows. When I open it in one banner, sometimes I don't get to see the chat or the Rumble rant plugin. So we're good on Rumble. Well, actually, I don't know that we're good. I checked. Let me just, before going any further, let's see that we're good on Rumble. We're good on Rumble. Let's make sure that we are good on vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Looks like we're good based on the comments. We got Alberta Rosie says he is a criminal. Psychedelic Math says buenas noches. I don't actually speak Spanish. I speak French. Bonne nuit. Bonne nuit tout le monde. On a des nouvelles qui sortent de Canada, le pays qui devient un pays géré par un tyran. Canada has become a country governed by tyranny. We'll get into it during the show tonight. You've seen the newest thing, the newest headline. The CRTC, which was governed to issue its own directives as to how the Online Streaming Act is going to be implemented. They're going to regulate any platform that hosts a podcast that makes more than $10 million a year. And, don't worry, everybody. They're going to stop at $10 million. They're never going to lower it to $1 million. We'll get there. All right, but before we get there, before we get into the Rumble rants, you all may have noticed this video contains a paid sponsor, because it does. we're going to talk about the RNC debate tonight, but I met the Field of Green sponsor in person. They like me. Yes. They like me, I like them, and it was fun to meet the people who actually facilitate your online existence. Sponsors that you like you, that you like working with, and that you like endorsing. I met the people from Field of Greens, and they're amazing. But Field of Greens is a sponsor for tonight, people. The link is in the chat. It's in the description, and you know what to do. But I'll just give you the lowdown on Field of Greens. Powdered greens, desiccated greens. Some people think that I have a lisp, which I do. A minor lisp. But when I do those Twitter spaces on the iPhone mic, my goodness, it sounds like I'm saying th instead of s. And some people or it sounds like I'm wearing, nothing wrong with wearing dentures, but I have a lisp. So desiccated greens, not defecated greens. Desiccated, it's of the origin of French, sec, ou desséqué, I don't know. It's dried, pulverized greens, fruits and vegetables that they pulverize it into this powder. You take 1 spoonful twice a day. 1 spoonful is a serving of fruits and vegetables with all of the antioxidants. The next best thing to eating raw fruits and vegetables, most people don't know you're supposed to have 5 to 7 servings of raw fruits and vegetables daily. Most people do not have that. Before this stream, I went out to get my daily dose, and I took some cilantro and ate it with a chili pepper, which was a lot spicier than I thought it was going to be, as my wake-up before the show. But when I travel, it's sometimes very difficult to get fresh fruits and vegetables. Having this as a healthy alternative to McDonald's crap, Burger King boycott, don't support them. It's good stuff. Made in America, USDA organic approved, because it's a food, not a supplement or an extract. You go to fieldofgreens.com. It'll bring you to Brickhouse Nutrition, but promo code VIVA for 15% off your initial order. The description is in the link. Hold on, we have a guest. What do you want? Get over here. All right, Winston is in the house. Look at this doggy. Oh, now that you're here, I'm actually going to look at your paw. He wasn't letting me look in between his toes. I think he might have had something in there that he was nibbling at. Okay, get out of here. So we've got a show tonight. So let's see. I got a couple of videos to play up front. The first one, I'm starting light with General Milley. Before I get into that, actually, let me do the standard disclaimers. No medical advice, no election fornication advice, but we're going to be talking about election fornication. No legal advice, ever. Be weary of anybody who would give legal advice over the interwebs, and be especially weary of anybody who would take legal advice over the interwebs. Cheryl Gage says, Luke Rudkowski definitely has ADD. That was a wild 15 minutes running around with him. So we were at the RNC debate. I put together a 15-minute vlog on the main channel. That did not include the walk around with Luke Rudkowski. He might have ADD. Who would I be to criticize him for that? But he's got a wealth of knowledge of the occult. Barnes is the legal brain. Grobert and Hunley are the JFK conspiracy brains. And Luke Rudkowski is the Bohemian Grove occult symbology brains. Everybody out there, when you see those wonderful things, they're called super chats on YouTube, Rumble rants on Rumble. YouTube takes 30% of these. So if you want to support the channel, the best way to do it, vivabarneslaw.locals.com, $7 a month, $70 a year at a discounted rate, or more if you so choose. People do that. Or on Rumble. Rumble takes 20% of the Rumble rants, the YouTube equivalent of super chats, but for the rest of the year, they take 0. Or you can get some merch. We'll talk about the merch afterwards. You look funny with a naked face. Well, it's been 48 hours, so I've got my 5 o'clock shadow back. In some sense, I had to exfoliate. I had to get sun on my face. It had been a long enough time. And I had played with my beard a little bit, so I had a few bald patches which were irritating me. So I had to shave it, start anew, exfoliate, tan, and we shall regrow. Phantom Lord DJH07 says General Milley is the modern day Benedict Arnold and should be treated in that manner. And I don't know if that means, I hope that means nothing bad. And also said he would not follow the orders of POTUS. He's a traitor. There's no question about that. I knew about it. Okay. I will leave that. Ginger Ninja. Thank you very much. I started soft with General Milley. Let's go hard. Oh my goodness. I met Patrick Bet-David again at this conference. He has grown on me rapidly. I love his demeanor. He's like the stern father, the stern, loving father that everybody is sort of scared of, but that everybody secretly wants. The guy who looks at you, judging what you have to say, being critical, but also he has a very loving look in his eyes. It's going to sound a little weird. He's got a very sincerely caring look in his eyes. When you talk to him, he's listening to you to understand you. And some people say to a flaw. Because he had on, who was that guy? Here, this guy. What's his name? Steve Schmidt. We got another Schmidt for brains. All right, sorry. Spoiler alert. I wasn't very polite with him on Twitter and he blocked me. I don't blame him, but I guess he's not going to do a podcast because I called him. Anybody who compares January 6th to 9/11, I'm going to say it unabashedly, they are a shameless, incorrigible piece of shit. Period. Oh, and I wasn't comparing. Well, let's hear. I think this is it where he says it. I wasn't comparing January 6th to September 11th in terms of casualties. More people died on September 11th, but January 6th was a more serious attack on our democracy. Pieces of shit say things like that. Pieces of shit try to equivocate January 6th to Pearl Harbor, to September 11th, to can't even think of another one. So, yeah, I called him that and he blocked me. Fine, understood. My bad.
The attack on the 6th was incited by one of the 44 people in the history of the country who's raised his hand.
Vinny was having a tough time this episode. I love Vinny too. Okay.
And swore the 35-word oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Patrick Bet-David listens to people to understand them. To my fault, I probably would have said, hold it there, Schmidt for brains. What did he do specifically to incite what you just referenced there? What did he do to incite it? Oh, is it when he said, go down to the Capitol and protest peacefully and patriotically? Is that in your demented mind incitement? But let's let the man speak because, some people fault Patrick Bet-David for even giving this guy a platform to spew his absolute idiocy. And I say good on Patrick Bet-David. Stupidity needs a bullhorn, not a wet blanket.
Period. It was the most grotesque betrayal and abdication of presidential responsibility in American history.
That was. Protest peacefully. This was a fraudulent election. That's the biggest abdication. Hillary Clinton running around for 3 years saying he's an illegitimate president is not. Obama spying on Trump incoming as president is not. No, this is. I did a podcast with Troy Goldenberg where it's out. I'll send the link around. I wanted people to listen to it. He's a young libertarian kid. He'll learn. He's young and naive, but he says, it was, he doesn't support Trump's the violence that ensued the transition of power. And it's like, there was no violence coming from Trump. There may have been a violence at a protest turned into something of a riot. Fine. But you don't think unlawfully spying on your incoming president from the outgoing administration is violence? It's political violence. You don't think calling him an illegitimate president, a Putin tool, a Russian asset is not violence? It is. So horse crap, Schmidt for brains. It was the most, whatever the hell he just said. But let's let this bullhorn keep going here.
It constitutionally disqualifies him, in my estimation, from...
It constitutionally disqualifies him, in my estimation, from holding... Oh, Peter Schmidt for brains is now also the lead dictator of the world. Screw you, plebs. You don't get to decide who you vote for. Schmidt for brains does.
Holding office ever again. How could anybody look at what happened? Look at him. It was a tour?
It was.
How fucking dare you?
How fucking dare you? He can turn to Vinny on Patrick Bet-David's podcast and say, how fucking dare you? And then he blocks me for calling him a world-class piece of shit. You can dish it, Schmidt for brains. You certainly can't take it, especially when you're called out for being an absolute raging idiot. You compare Jan 6 to 9/11, you're an idiot.
Guided around? Mr. The guy was supposed to be this crazy wild man. They were okay, here's my question. Steve, how do you explain the countless FBI agents in plain uniform that Congress won't even tell us how many?
Because it didn't happen.
No.
It didn't happen.
It didn't happen. It didn't happen. And Ray Epps just got charged with one measly misdemeanor 3 years later after being on the FBI's most wanted list for actions that put other people in jail for 17 years. It didn't happen. Listen to me. I'm telling you it didn't happen.
The violent insurrection.
Oh, yeah. By the way, let me see this. I saw that.
Oh, now you're going to go to Tucker Carlson.
People are fucking rotting in jail for 30 years.
Yeah, because they're criminals.
Because they're criminals.
What the hell does that look like?
Okay,
what does that look like to you?
One video.
Look at the violence. I don't give a shit.
Just because you're yelling doesn't mean you're right.
No, it doesn't matter.
That's one piece of video.
Yeah,
Why don't we show the hours of footage of them
Tucker Carlson.
Okay.
What do we got here?
Oh, it's Tucker Carlson, so it's got to be wrong. But I'm what's his name? Steve Schmidt from the Lincoln Project. So I've got to be right.
Carlson here. We got a guy. We got Tucker Carlson. We got a guy who's got his own show on Russian
Ashley
TV.
Babbitt, God rest her soul.
We got the king of replacement, domestic
Oh
terrorist.
my God! Look at this violence.
Domestic terror. I say let Schmidt talk. I would have had him on to push back a little bit more on certain substantive matters. Oh, it didn't happen? They didn't know how many FBI agents were in the crowd. Tarek Johnson, former Jan 6 Capitol Hill lieutenant, knows that they were there, admitted as much, recognized as much, didn't know why they were there. They had infiltrated the Proud Boys. Allegedly. They had infiltrated the Proud Boys. They had infiltrated the Oath Keepers months in advance as evidence of the seditious conspiracy and violent insurrection overthrow the government that they knew was coming on January 6th, and yet no cops. How do you explain that, Schmidt for brains? So after that, he blocked me. But I can understand it. Nobody likes being called names on Twitter. Oh, lordy. So that was another one. That podcast is painful to listen to because you want to jump in and you want to interrupt at every step of the way where he comes out with absolute, utter horse crap. Now, before we get into the actual part of the show, we'll have a little bit of lightheartedness. I went on not a drift boat, but a charter boat. Like we went fishing. It's called Real Floridian Fishing. REEL, Floridian Fishing. They're on Instagram. I wish they were on Twitter because I've been tagging the heck out of them. Look, when I was a kid, my dad took me out once on a boat, and I remember we hooked a mahi-mahi, and it jumped out of the water and threw the hook. I remember the day was uneventful on the boat, and that damn shitballs. It still works. It still works. Okay. It lost a bit of the frame. I'm going to fix that afterwards. Gosh darn it. Okay, that'll stay there. We went fishing, and it wasn't the greatest experience. And it was like, and then I tried to take my kids out once before, and it's like it's expensive and it's long. And if you're not catching fish, you have kids coming back with my childhood memories, and you have the adults saying, "Ugh." We went yesterday. People, the video is coming. Look at these beautiful beasts. They are beautiful, and I appreciate this might make some people unhappy to see a fish dying and getting killed. We ate that fish last night, and not all of it because we got some in the freezer. It was flipping delicious. We get out on the boat. Within an hour, we had already caught 2 kingfish. They were small. I mean, big kingfish, beautiful keepers. And I was like, okay, we're good enough. We're good enough. This has not been a flop. Then we hook these. The bull was jumping out of the water like you've never seen. That we landed them is amazing. And oh my, the kids were freaking out. We hooked a wahoo, which took out about 400 yards of drag on this reel, just for 30 seconds. And we were fighting it, and it came off. But it was the experience that I've always. I mean, it was. I've never had an experience like that before. It was absolutely incredible, and even the stuff that didn't go so good. Here, look at this. This is classic. I call it taxation without representation.
Got the gap.
Kids hauling in the fish. The kid would have had no chance of reeling in.
Don't.
The kid would have had no chance of reeling in one of those big ones. Okay, we're going to skip ahead here.
I'm going to get out of the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so hold on, check this out. Kingfish, but it's a little less than it was before.
It's a mini wahoo.
Oh, it happened. Something ate it. Oh, who did that to our fish? How did... What happened there?
Wait until you see the tooth marks. Look at those teeth marks.
Okay, that's crazy.
So I call that taxation without representation. It's a metaphor of life, by the way. We are the fish, and the government is the shark in the water. They just want a piece of everything that we have. Or we're the fishermen, the government is the shark, and our livelihoods are the fish. Okay, now I feel like I was literally just watching Billy Madison, and I feel like I'm. So we even when it went badly, we lost that fish, we lost the wahoo, but what real Floridian fishing. Fantastic. And then what was I going to say? Oh, the wahoo that got off, doesn't matter. And the fish was delicious. We had the kingfish, we had the mahi-mahi, and we had, we caught what they call a porker of a porgy. A very fat, juicy, beautiful porgy as well. Delicious. The lobster of the sea. Okay, now, as Barnes is in the backdrop, let me see one thing here. I'll do the Rumble rants afterwards. Everything is good all around. You have the link to YouTube, so get your butts over there because we're going to end. You have the link to Rumble. We're going to end on YouTube in 7 or 8 minutes. Robert, you good to come in? Oh, he's fixing his tie. Booyah. Sir, how goes the battle?
Good.
Okay, Robert, now I'm going to ask you because I noticed it. You got a new book over your shoulder. What book is it?
It's a little shout out to Dave Rubin. We're still on Kerry Lake's side here, Dave. Good luck to you. The Kerry Lake's grid book, Unafraid. Which is out that people can get. And she was at the debate where we were at, that she had to endure it along with us. I guess we should probably still keep a secret that Dave Rubin privately confessed that he's on the wrong side and he's waiting to come back to the Trump side. I
should say, but Robert, not everyone might know. Everyone might not know about the beef between Kerry Lake and Dave Rubin. Now, Rubin accused Kerry Lake of I think the word he used is lying. I'll say at the very least there is discussion to be had because Kerry Lake was on. It was on Patrick Bet David as well, right? And then she said,
Patrick Bet David. Yeah, she was on Patrick Bet David.
And then she said that DeSantis shut down the beaches in Florida, closed the nightclubs, and Dave Rubin. And I want everyone to understand, I love Dave Rubin. The only reason I'm not chiming in on Twitter is because it just gets misunderstood too easily. Rubin tweeted out, "This is a lie. You need to push back on it." DeSantis never shut down the beaches in Florida. And I want to come in there and say it's a little bit nuanced because he did in March or April 2020 say gatherings of no more than 10 on beaches. He did shut down the nightclubs for a little bit and bars. So whether or not she oversold the shutting down of the beaches, it's not as simple as saying he never did anything, because he did restrict free movement on open beaches, if only for a short period of time. I don't want to get involved in the fight. Rubin called her a liar for lying about DeSantis, and then she unfollowed him on Twitter and apparently said, don't take it personally. And Rubin is not going to not take that personally, so he made a funny joke online. But Robert, who's right in that battle?
You know, I've told the DeSantis camp for a while. People wanted me to sue DeSantis. People forget DeSantis through much of the 2020 had basically the same position as Trump. I know DeSantis fans don't want to recognize that. I lived through it, so I remember it very well. So when Trump was better on the pandemic, DeSantis was generally better on the pandemic. When Trump was bad on the pandemic, DeSantis was generally bad on the pandemic. It was in 2021 that DeSantis, late 2021, DeSantis had his own version of Fauci there in Florida. One of the great myths that DeSantis people push is that he fired him. No, he didn't. He extended him all the way through to late 2021. And DeSantis was mostly saying pro-Fauci things through large parts of 2020, unfortunately, and he promoted the vaccine far more than Trump ever did. What he gets credit for, deservedly, is two things: siding with Trump towards the end of 2020 and reopening the state. He didn't fully reopen until September of 2020, for those that don't remember. But credit to him for doing so, because he got a lot of criticism from the New York Times and a lot of other places for it. And then in 2021, late 2021, he hired a great Surgeon General, and he turned course and rejected the vaccine in ways Trump should have done. So those are things DeSantis deserves credit for, but there's a lot of myth making out there of trying to relitigate the pandemic. And in my view, as Steve Deace even admitted when I was on his show, nobody gets a lot of credit on either political party side or the Trump or DeSantis side for how the pandemic was handled in 2020, at least from my perspective. It was me and Alex Jones initially. We were up against everybody. Steve Bannon was screaming for lockdowns. Jack Posobiec was cheering on lockdowns. Mike Cernovich, he changed midway through, but he wasn't great. Large part Scott Adams was go vaccine. Jordan Peterson, go vaccine. Ben Shapiro, go. That's the other problem I have, is that some of the people that are big DeSantis fans right now, they were some of the worst during the pandemic, like Ben Shapiro. Put on the mask. Remember, hey, I love Dr. Peterson, but he said just shut up and take the vaccine. I give credit for all these people's willingness to reverse and recognize they were wrong. But the only major national political figure that was really right early on the pandemic was Bobby Kennedy, who came out in April on Patrick Bet-David's show. We got a chance to meet him out there at the debate, which was, like I said, the first debate was like putting your head in a vice and just going, seeing how it works. The second one was like double that.
We'll do our review of it afterwards. But who was the first Surgeon General in Florida before? I forget his name now.
The original one was, by the way, one that DeSantis actually appointed, was a huge Fauci fan and was all for lockdowns and a bunch of stuff. Like, where there's still critics is there were people in Florida who are unhappy about how DeSantis not only handled it early, but at stages he let a lot of Democratic cities do a lot of crazy stuff. He was still talking about shutting down bars and restaurants in the summer over how many people they let in. He was inconsistent on masks. Again, he deserves credit for reversal when he did. It's just there's this fantasy land version that he was always standing up against. Actually, there are 8 states that never issued the lockdown orders that DeSantis issued, that he kept in place all the way up until the fall of 2020 in part. And so I get, for people that moved to Florida to experience like Rubin did, the horrors of California, Florida was definitely a lot better than California. But Trump and DeSantis mostly were in sync really until mid-2021. When DeSantis started to flip on all of it, started to change the Surgeon General, and change his position on the vaccine, open up a grand jury. But what I've been telling people is, rather than trying to relitigate the pandemic, which is not going to be a long-term successful strategy anyway, in case they haven't figured that out yet, with him sinking to third and fourth in some surveys. Do use the power of the governorship. You know, I mean, he has a tool that Trump does not have, that almost none of the other candidates have. He is a current governor with actual power. Rather than run around on book deals and campaigning in Iowa and elsewhere, go use your power as governor in Florida and deliver on that grand jury that you promised that was going to investigate Pfizer and Moderna for illegal behavior in Florida. That would be his most useful tool to boost his candidacy. But who that would conflict with is a lot of his current big donors who wanted that to be nice show for the press and the headlines, but don't want it to do anything. And I can tell you, as of now, they have done nothing. Brooke Jackson is one of the key witnesses in that. To my knowledge, they haven't even reached out to her. So, the DeSantis is not helping himself, and it's a kamikaze campaign anyway. But if for all the DeSantis supporters out there, if you advocate for him to use his power now to make a difference with where the power he has, rather than re-arguing 2020 over and over again.
Yeah, and I also just think it's not good to be fighting among friends, even if it's just political banter and you take it with a grain of salt. But Robert, just so that nobody thinks I'm making stuff up, this is the Ron DeSantis website. The date is March 17, 2020. Bars and nightclubs, under the direction of Governor DeSantis, all bars and nightclubs throughout Florida will close for the next 30 days. Yada, yada. The beaches. The governor is directing parties accessing public beaches in the state of Florida to follow the CDC guidance, limiting their gatherings to no more than 10 persons. So for Kari Lake to come out and say he shut down the beaches, that's just a question of interpretation in terms of restricting movement. Okay, he said limited to 10 as per the CDC guidelines, which I think were don't gather regardless. So is that a lie? Is it a lie worth fighting over? And is it a lie worth breaking political alliances? Because what's going to happen is DeSantis is not going to be the nominee. Trump will be, and will you have said too many things to take back in terms of saying, okay, now I go and support the candidate?
Yeah,
Plus, I like
Kari
Lake.
People want to join these kamikaze campaigns, so because that's what they are. So I don't think it's the best idea. We've been saying that from the very beginning, from very early on when the writing was clear. But Kari Lake's a rising national figure. That she's on the right side a lot more often than not. And also, if I was in the DeSantis camp, I wouldn't make Kari Lake my adversary. I just don't think that looks good. I don't think that sells well. I mean, you'd think at some point when his numbers are going down and down and down, people would get the message, but some folks are just too emotionally committed, I think, invested in him to recognize the counterproductive nature of their current campaign.
All right, now, Robert, I made a joke on Twitter that we've already been demonetized on YouTube, so to hell with you. Oh, we're back on now. It's so ridiculous. I do think I may have dropped a few too many shit bombs when I'm talking about Steve Schmidt. Robert, before we go on to Rumble, we'll just get everything started there in 2 minutes. The link is in the pinned thing in the chat. What is this thing about Steve Schmidt, the Lincoln Project, and underage boys?
Oh, well, you missed your chance to ask Karl Rove about that when you're out there. But that'd have been fun. That would have been a more viral moment than anything that came out of the debate. Viva Fry Canadian challenges Karl Rove outside. So Steve Schmidt's background is he was a John McCain guy. He was one of the key people, along with what's her name, who's now on MSNBC, who sabotaged Sarah Palin's vice presidential bid. I mean, while they're supposed to be working for them. So that's Steve Schmidt's MO, modus operandi. He's just a grifter looking for the next check he can get. And he initially was kind of pro-Trump in certain respects because he thought that would line his pockets. Then he realized being anti-Trump would line his pocket. The guy has no moral principles of any kind. He never has. Anybody associated with what happened to Sarah Palin, where they were deliberately undermining her. I mean, these were her consultants hired by McCain, spent the entire fall bashing her to the press and leaking negative information about her to the press because they see populism as a greater threat to their grifting than anything else. But once he realized he wasn't going to be able to get on the Trump train in a way that would line his pockets, he became an obsessive anti-Trumper. He knew that would get him a lot of media gigs. and he knew that would get checks from dumb donors. And that's what the Lincoln Group really was. I mean, they're all full of hustlers and grifters. A percentage of them are war whores. But you know, Schmidt could care less. Schmidt's solely there to who's going to line his pockets. I mean, that whole debate was like a brothel advertisement for the military-industrial complex. And it turns out that the queen of the hose is neocon Nikki Haley herself.
I don't know, man.
They're all competing for it.
It was a tough one between her and Pence. If Ukraine falls,
or you
then
can throw in Christie. And I mean, it was just they were all insane on it. Credit to DeSantis, who at least said common sense words that and Vivek that we got to get out of there. But and now trying to make it is somehow we have to fight Russia because in order to fight China, though fighting Russia actually hurts our effort to fight China. These people couldn't think their way out of a paper bag. But so Schmidt was part of the group that joined the Lincoln Group, just a huge grifter group. But unsurprisingly, it had key people amongst them, John Kasich advisors, others, who Karl Rove has known for more than a decade, were involved in grooming and underage and young, solicitation of young men for sexual activities. And so Karl Rove kept that secret for a while. It finally came out that Steve Schmidt's buddies were doing this. Schmidt has never honestly fully come to terms with it, but it's who these people are. I mean, that they're the bottom of the barrel. They're part of the problem with the country, and they represent that. And in fact, I mean, the response of the ordinary Republican to that debate is the response to the Steve Schmidts of the world in general, which is they want nothing to do with these people. I mean, the only people that have any future out of that, DeSantis, maybe, if he doesn't torch it entirely between now and election day, primary day, and Vivek, who's running on a Trumpian platform. The others are done. Mike Pence is done. Tim Scott, if anybody had any illusion that he was useful, they realized no. Neocon Nikki is going to get the board gigs and the publishing gigs and the media gigs and the university professorial gigs. She's never going to be in the White House. And if any other than DeSantis or Vivek, any of those other candidates, I would not vote for, period, ever. I don't care who their opponent is. There's not a chance in hell I'd vote for these people.
Well, I mean,
they would get us in. They would be George W. Bush Part 2. It'd be war and economic collapse.
I think Burgum is acceptable.
Oh, Burgum is okay.
Yeah, but I mean,
he actually did the best of the debate. It's not going to matter because he can't get above 1%, and he doesn't placate the Murdoch crowd, so they won't boost him.
And I gave my assessment of the debate on Friday's show. An absolute joke.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was fun with Luke Rutkowski being out there and meeting up with the Rumble crews, doing a good job out there. Presenting it. The nicest people I thought there were the people who work at the Reagan Library. Credit to all of them, the volunteers. They were very Reagan-esque. That combination of kind of an older definition of America, like a 1950s view of America, sort of patriotic and optimistic, despite what would seem like difficult circumstances to most people. They're always cheery. Doesn't matter what happens. That was Reagan. It was like somehow his volunteers are just like him. All the people they're cheery, they're nice, they're friendly, they're sociable. The crowd inside, all those donors and grifters and political class people. I mean, I made a joke with somebody. This is probably going to get us into trouble, but I'll go ahead. I was like, if there was any place for a mass shooter that people wouldn't regret, that was one of them. I was just like, these people are a waste of space. I can't even stand being in the physical presence of 90% of them.
There was a dirty feel to it, and I mean like spiritually dirty. I had never actually been in Milwaukee. There were 6,000, 6,000 people. You're in a crowd, you're with people. Here it was like not rubbing elbows because I wasn't talking to anybody, but you see these people and you understand what's going on. It was smarmy. It felt dirty being there. And yeah,
I've been. I think you could go to an Indian brothel or an arms runner get together and feel you're around more moral people than what that crowd was like.
There was one thing about that debate that was interesting. Yeah, so the walk around with Luke Rutkowski was fantastic. Then there was the same security guard who kept on catching me, telling me I shouldn't have been where I was. I started from the top of the mountain. I thought it was a roundabout because I saw cars parked up there. It turns out it was a helipad and ordinarily not open to the public. And so then I'm walking down, and then we were looking at the stealth bomber in the back. But this was as the candidates were coming up. So that security guard's like, guys, get out of here. These are the candidates. And it was a joke. It was an absolute joke. It made everybody look bad. I still like Vivek, but it was clear that he didn't have his best night, and they were coming gunning for him for his China superficial stuff. I'd like to know what Nikki Haley's China connections are. A bunch of hypocrites accusing him of what they do. All right, let's end this on YouTube while we're on the subject. Come on over to Rumble, people. Oh, that was what I was going to say. Here's the vlog of my, it's a 15-minute vlog of my 2.5 days in California. It includes the day of the event, but, a life vlog. So check that out on Rumble. Now we're ending on YouTube, and we're going to get on with the show. Before we do it, Robert, what's the menu for the evening? And then we go to YouTube. Rumble.
We had 12 topics for tonight's show on Rumble, and we got a few bonus topics for the after party exclusively on Locals. And if you have a question, make sure you can tip at the Locals, $5 or more. We'll try to answer every single one of them at vivabarneslaw.locals.com. The 12 topics tonight, we have Democrats setting off fire alarms that they thought was an exit sign. We got big food and farm reform bills going through Congress. Great efforts by Thomas Massie. Amazon sued for being a monopoly. Supreme Court, 2 major cases that they took up this past week, including the Texas and Florida bills to try to stop social media censorship, and standing in the test cases about when do you have the right to sue when you're testing something out to prove it's illegal. Trump is the top topic voted on tonight by the board, and that's primarily his New York civil suit, but there's also news in his D.C. case and suing Christopher Steele. But the bodega, wrongfully prosecuted bodega, suing the New York DA for his racially discriminatory patterns. Biden's impeachment inquiry commences. What would make it constitutional? The Second Amendment in California and Maryland. Trans laws from Tennessee and Kentucky get approved by the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. A abortion ban upheld against the Biden administration's attempt to claim that federal law mandates abortion accessibility. Michigan election lawsuit that raises some old issues that would go to the 2024 election. The Tupac, they arrested somebody almost 20 years later more than 20 years later in the death here in Vegas. And some bonus topics exclusive to the after party. Robert Francis Kennedy Jr. Can he run as an independent? Is that what he's going to announce on October 9th? What is the impact?
Yeah, well, and Eric Huntley and I are openly disagreeing, but I told him neither of us have any hard feelings. He thinks it's going to siphon some of the Republican vote, and I think it's going to hurt the Democrats more. Robert, I'm going to defer to your assessment, even if I stubbornly stick to mine, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll give some of the assessment of that and what some of the backstory may be. Who the heck is the governor of Arizona, since that's actually managed to get confusing last week? When is the groomer label not liable? California is trying to impose mileage limits on your car, wants to track your car. I mean, that's some of the nuttiness coming out of California. And a lawsuit involving Better Call Saul and Liberty Tax Service.
I have questions about this, Robert, because I have questions about it. We'll get there. Okay, ending on YouTube. Get your butts over to Rumble. The link is in the pinned comment, but it's Viva for I on Rumble. Ending in 5, 4, 3,